Hi, I'm Al Franken, and this is kind of an experiment. This is my first YouTube video. I do run the Al Franken podcast here on YouTube, but it's just audio with the pleasing podcast logo. So this is kind of an experiment, and this time you get to look at me while I'm talking and see if you can trust me. Today I want to talk about the filibuster. A few weeks ago, Congress passed the $1.9 trillion COVID Relief Act. The act is enormously popular with the American people because it provides a whole bunch of great things. $1,400 checks for Americans who are hurting, enhanced unemployment benefits, tens of billions to produce and distribute vaccines, and also to reopen schools. The historic $3,000 child credit, which will lift half of Americans' children out of poverty, and a ton of other great stuff. 70% of Americans favored it, 70%, yet it got not one Republican vote in either the House or the Senate. Mitch McConnell said, Biden just wants to take credit for the recovery that's already started. You know, Mitch, we know that you and Elaine are doing very well, that the Chow family shipping empire is doing just great. In fact, those at the top of our economic ladder have done very well during the pandemic. And Biden's $1.9 trillion package is designed to make sure that when we finally do get out of this pandemic, the economy will expand in a way that helps all Americans. Again, not one Republican vote. It passed the Senate when Vice President Harris broke the 50-50 tie. Democrats were able to do that because the bill was passed under what is called reconciliation. It's a technical term, but it pertains to legislation that affects the budget. But most legislation in the Senate needs 60 votes to pass, or rather 60 votes to break a filibuster. And Mitch McConnell basically destroyed the Senate when I was there by abusing the filibuster. During the Obama administration, McConnell filibustered more executive nominees than had been filibustered previously in the entire history of the United States. And that's why we've got to do something about the filibuster. Now, when every Senate Republican votes against an historic piece of legislation that 70% of Americans are for, they have a problem and they know it. Their solution? Suppress votes. Suppress the votes of the people who vote for Democrats. Poor people, young people, college students, and people of color. And fortunately for them, this is something they know how to do. It's in their wheelhouse. Currently, there are more than 250 Republican voter suppression bills in over 40 states that are designed to make it much harder for the wrong people to vote. And of course, they passed a number of those in Georgia just a couple weeks ago, which the governor signed into law. My favorite, I think everyone's favorite, makes it a crime to give food or water to someone waiting in line to vote. A crime. This is sick. Now, the House of Representatives has passed an enormously important voting rights bill, H.R. 1, that among other things will make it easier to register and to vote. And that bill is coming to the Senate as S1. This is not a bill that would qualify under current rules for reconciliation. As things stand, Republicans in the Senate will filibuster S1, and their efforts to suppress the votes of the people whose votes they want to suppress will be successful. We can't allow that to happen. So what can Democrats in the Senate do? Well, Chuck Schumer will need every Democratic vote in the Senate to get rid of the filibuster, 50 plus Kamala Harris. Now, two senators, Joe Manchin of West Virginia and Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona, have said publicly that they will not vote to get rid of the filibuster. Well, as I see it, there are two possibilities here. One, to do a carve-out, to say that voting rights are so fundamental to our democracy that legislation that protects the right to vote is not subject to a filibuster. Now that would require that Senators Manchin and Sinema get on board, which, given how egregious these voter suppression efforts by Republican state legislatures have been, I would hope is possible. But if not, I have another idea. Joe Manchin has said that he is open to modifying the filibuster. Now, my friend, renowned political scientist Norm Ornstein, and I have come up with a plan that would make it much harder for Republicans to sustain a filibuster. We came up with this idea my first week in the Senate in July of 2009. Early Thursday evenings, the Senate takes its final votes of the week, and then we fly home to our states for the weekend and do stuff in our states. After my first Thursday votes, I took the elevator to the subway and ran into Kentucky Senator Jim Bunning, who I did not yet know had a tendency to be grumpy. And I said to him, "Have a great weekend, Jim. I'll see you on Monday." And he said, "I don't have to be here on Monday. It's a cloture vote." A cloture vote is a vote to end a filibuster, and we needed 60 votes to get cloture. At the time, we had 59 because Ted Kennedy was very sick. And I thought, this is cockeyed. They're the ones filibustering. Why are we the ones that have to show up? So I called Norm, who said, exactly. The ones that are filibustering should have to show up to sustain the filibuster instead of requiring 60 votes to end a filibuster. They should have to come up with 41 to continue debate. Well, Al, you might say, they have 50 votes. It won't be hard for them to get 41. Here's the thing. Chuck Schumer is the majority leader. He can call for a vote at, say, 3 in the morning. Now, not only would that require 41 Republican senators to show up at 3 in the morning, but they'd have to keep 41 Republicans there on the floor. Now, Mitch McConnell might say, well, I'm 79 years old. I don't want to be here all night. And Chuck Grassley might say, yeah, well, I'm 87. You think I want to be here at 4 in the morning? Not only that, but this would be a talking filibuster. They actually have to get up and debate in the grand tradition of the segregationists. No one has to stand for 24 hours like Strom Thurmond did with a catheter, I believe. Ron Johnson could speak for 3 minutes, pass it off to Josh Hawley, who could pass it off to Ted Cruz. But no green eggs and ham. It has to be germane. And we could have a debate about why you would make it a crime to give water to someone standing in line for hours to vote. Defend that. Defend that. That would be a good debate for the American people to watch for 24 hours or 48 hours or a week till they give up. I'd like to see that. Wouldn't you? Well, I'm exhausted. So that's my first YouTube video. Stay tuned for the next.